Good morning, everyone. I, Purnima, an assistant professor from the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. On behalf of Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering, Mysuru, I would like to welcome today's resource person, Amogh Harish, co-founder of Design Infuse, UI UX designer, and also all the participants. Before starting the session today, I would like to introduce today's resource person, Amogh Harish. He has He has completed his bachelor's in information science and engineering from Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering, Mysuru. He's a co-founder of company Design Infuse, and he started his company when he was doing his second semester at Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering. And he's come to his skills. He's a full stack developer with 6 years experience in PHP, MySQL, HTML5, JavaScript, ES5, JavaScript, ES6, Angular, JS, and React JS, and is an Android developer with 4 years of experience in app design and implementation, Flutter developer with 2 years of experience, iOS developer with 1 year of experience, and is a Unix system administrator with knowledge on maintaining Linux servers and systems with an experience of 4 years. He has done many projects and he designed and built an e-commerce website for Hatikapi, designed and built the website for Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering, and he has undertaken full design and development of 30 plus website for several small and large scale business from the domain of F&B, hospitality, product and service and education. And he contributed to the open source project Gutenberg being developed by WordPress. He contributed to open source project Realm for Android, which is a NoSQL database for Android, and contributed to the open source Android app Rightly Pro to improve the user's experience. This is a brief introduction about the resource person. Before starting the session, a few instructions to participants. If you have any queries, you can post that queries in the chat box. These queries will be answered at the end of the session. Now I request Amogh sir to take over the session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the introduction. Okay. Okay. Just give me a moment. Okay. Hi, my name is Amogh. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Vidyavardhaka College of Engineering and the Computer Science and Engineering Department for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be a part of this workshop. I'm a full stack developer, like Purnima ma'am introduced at the starting of the session. And I've been working on websites for about 6 years now. Building websites is very fun, and it is really it's a very creative outlet for you if you are into doing something creative, right? So welcome to this workshop, right? Over the course of the next 3 days, I'm going to give you an overall idea of how to build a website. And for this, we'll be using 3 main programming languages. These include HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So we will split each day into taking up each of these programming languages. So the first day will be HTML, the second day will be CSS, and the third day will be JavaScript. So just to give you a little bit of information on what a website is, right? A website is basically one single HTML file that will, that has certain instructions to the browser in order for the browser to execute, and these will display the result on the browser screen. Okay, so HTML is actually short for Hypertext Markup Language. Now, there's a story behind HTML, right? And the story goes that it was, there was a physicist at CERN which is the European Organization for Atomic Research, right? So when he had a problem of sharing certain research documents with his friends, with his other scientists at CERN, he came up with HTML. So the problem that he had was that sometimes he had over 800 to 900 pages in the research document, and sending these over to his friends was to his other scientists for peer review or something like that was very difficult, right? So he thought, why not make it more simple? Let's come up with a solution that will allow me to share this in a much more accessible way. And at this point of time, computers were they were huge. They occupied entire rooms, and they were only available to scientists and people like that. So coming up with a solution was not an easy opportunity. It was not an easy thing, right? He spent close to 10 years working on this, and somewhere around 1990, he submitted a proposal for a system that would be called HTML, right, which was Hypertext Markup Language. Unfortunately, the organization CERN didn't have enough funding to allow Tim Berners-Lee to continue work on the project. But he put out whatever he had researched along with another partner in the open domain, and anyone that was interested could take the project up. So someone did take the project up, and a group of people took up the project, in fact. And they are now known as today they're known as a HTML working group. So these are all a bunch of individuals that sit down, they talk about what needs to go into HTML, what does not need to go into HTML, and they provide support for the language. So one key thing that we need to remember here is that HTML was actually designed to share scientific documents. So this would include, some of the things that you can see in HTML language, which I will go over in due course. You can see that much of it was written with scientific documents in mind, right? So HTML is very powerful, right? Today it powers pretty much anything that you can see on the internet. Without HTML, there is the internet cannot exist, right? Everything, every app that you use, every service that you use every day, everything has HTML in the backend, right? Google, for example, when you search something on Google, all the results are displayed in a HTML document, right? If you have, if you browse Facebook, when you go to Facebook, everything that you see over there is actually written in HTML. And it's not just HTML, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All three of them are used in conjunction to create, some of the most popular services that we use and love. So, like I said, no website would exist without HTML, right? But I've been talking about all this. I've been talking about HTML. I've been talking about who invented it, why it was created, and how it covers some of the most popular things on the internet today. But what exactly is HTML? Well, let's take a look at it. An HTML website is basically a HTML file, right? Any file that has an extension of .html is a HTML file, right? And what is within this file, or what is within an HTML file? All HTML files are something called as tags. So I will go through tags in the next few screens, right? This is what a tag looks like, right? A tag is something that has, an opening left angle bracket, followed by the name of the tag, followed by a right angle bracket. Then we have the content of the tag, right? And then we have a left angle bracket, followed by a /, then the name of the tag, and then the closing angle bracket. So as you can see in this example, right, we have a P tag, okay? A P tag stands for a paragraph tag. So a paragraph tag, with a paragraph tag, you can write a paragraph, okay? So let's just go a little bit more closer into this tag, right? Let's explore what it is. So if you take a look at it, we have opening left angle bracket, right? And then we have the name of the tag, and then we have a right angle bracket. So when a browser comes across a left angle bracket in the document, the browser understands that whatever comes after the left angle bracket, which is after this, the one that is being highlighted on the screen right now, the one that comes after this is an instruction that the browser needs to execute. Okay, so let me repeat that again. When the browser goes through an HTML file, when it is displaying an HTML file, when it comes across a left angle bracket, it is understood that whatever comes after the left angle bracket is an instruction that the browser needs to execute, right? So what comes after the left angle bracket? In this example, it is a P, right? The letter P. So this is called the name of the tag, right? So the browser understands that whatever comes after the left angle bracket is something that it needs to execute, right? So in this case, it will execute this P tag, right? Now, how does the, so once the browser starts, going through this, how does it know where to end? How does it know where the instruction ends? There should be some starting and end point, right? So that is what the right angle bracket is. So the right angle bracket says that this is, all the instruction is. After this point, there is no more instruction. So I'll just repeat this once again because this is very fundamental. This is what HTML files are made of. This is what HTML is made of, right? So we have, a left angle bracket. That is how the browser understands that this instruction needs to be executed. Then we have the name of the tag, which is in this instance P, right? And then we have a closing angle bracket, a right angle bracket, which signifies to the browser that this is the ending of the instruction, right? But if you remember my previous slide, we had something that looks like this. We have already seen this. This is this is a left angle bracket followed by the name, and then followed by the right angle bracket. So the browser knows that whatever happens after this is actually an instruction that it needs to execute, right? But how does it know where to stop, right? That is where the closing tag comes. So this is called as an opening tag, and this is called as a closing tag. So the closing tag is very similar to the opening tag, right? With the only difference being that the closing tag will have / before the name of the tag. So we have the opening bracket, opening left bracket, which is the left angle bracket. Then we have the /, then we have the name of the tag, and then we have the right angle bracket. So the browser will now know that, the tag is closed. Okay, so just to give a little bit more context onto the same example, right? We have the tag that opens over here, right? A P tag. And within this, I've written my name is Amogh. Now, this is the content of the tag, right? In this case, it is just a little bit of text that says my name is Amogh, right? And then the tag closes. So when the browser comes across this, the first part, okay, it will understand that whatever comes after this, after the right closing bracket, it understands that that is something that I need to execute as a paragraph. I need to display this as a paragraph. That is the main role of the browser, right? The browser will always look at what is there in terms of instructions within the HTML file, and then it executes those. So in this case, it is going to display my name is Amogh as a paragraph, okay? And then once it gets to this part, right, the part where we have the / in front of the tag name, it decides that, it knows that that is where the paragraph ends. Okay, so let's go over it one more time. We have the opening of the tag. We have this, we have the opening tag, right? Then we have the content, and then we have the closing tag. The closing tag always has a / in front of it. Now, with regards to the content, the part that is being highlighted right now, over here I've put in text, right? But it can also contain other things. It can also contain other tags, right? I will go over more examples of tags in the future slides, but it is important to understand this concept, right? HTML can be as simple and as complicated as you want it to be, right? The most simple form of HTML would be just to put something like this, right? You can just create a tag and put some content in, and it would work. But it can also be more complex than this. You can have like 20,000 different tags within a single tag, right? And there are multiple websites that have things like that. For example, Facebook does have a lot of tags within tags. That is the most fundamental thing that that makes HTML what it is. Okay, now there are different kinds of tags, right? We have seen a normal one. This is called a normal tag, where we have, the starting, we have the opening tag, we have the content in between that, and we have the closing tag at the end, right? We have something else called as a self-closing tag. A self-closing tag is, it starts off very similar to a normal tag, where we have a left angle bracket. Then we have the name of the tag, right? But then after that, we don't have a right angle bracket. Okay, there is no right angle bracket. There is no, there is no way, there is no place that signifies to the browser that it's closing the starting tag, right? Instead, what it has is, towards the end, it has a / and a right angle bracket. So this is something called as a self-closing tag, right? Now, you might be wondering what this src in the middle means, right? I will come to this later, but for now, just understand that this is, within these quotes is what is the image that we want to display. So this is called an image tag, right? If you want to display an image on a website, this is the tag that we would use. So when the browser comes across this tag, it knows that it should display that particular image, which is within these double quotes. Okay. Now we have one more tag as well, which is called as an open tag. So an open tag is again very similar to the previous tag that we saw, right? We saw a self-closing tag. So we start off with a left angle bracket. Then we have the name of the tag, which in this case is input. But we don't have, a / before the right angle bracket. This is called as an open tag, right? Now I'd like to point out something here. In terms of self-closing tags and in terms of open tags, there are actually very few tags that are like this, right? In terms of self-closing tag, this is probably the only tag that is like this, right? There are a few others, but then they're not used as often as the image tag. And in terms of open tags, input is one of the other tags that is very unique, that are like this. Most of the tags that you will see, that you will encounter in HTML, will be along these lines, right? It will have a starting tag and it will have a closing tag. So that is very important to keep in mind, right? So just going back to the open tag again. The difference between an open tag and a self-closing tag is that an open tag does not have a right angle bracket. Sorry, a / before the right angle bracket. Okay, so you've seen three different tags now. You've seen an image tag, you've seen a paragraph tag, and you've seen an input tag. And I will come to what an input tag is a little bit later on in this session, right? But the thing is that all of these elements put together, all of these things put together in a file forms an HTML document, right? So let's see a few examples of tags, okay? So this is, building on the old example. I've shown you an image tag already. So this is called an image tag, right? And it's important to note that it's actually spelled IMG, not IMAGE, right? So the tag is called as IMG. This tells the browser that it needs to display an image. So whatever goes between this quote, right, between these double quotes, it is called the name of the file. Okay, so in this case, this would display a file which is called image and which has an extension of JPG, right? One other small point of note here is that if you have a URL for an image, for example, maybe you searched for this image on Google, right? You Google searched for an image and you found the URL for that particular image. Then you can put that image URL inside these double quotes, right? And it would work just fine. When when the browser comes across that, it will display that image. Okay. Now, another example of a tag is called a heading tag, right? And this is a very good example of why HTML was invented in the first place, right? When we're creating documents, when you're creating, when you're writing a resume, for example, we differentiate different things by headings, right? So it's very important in order to segregate different sections by headings. And HTML offers a way for us to do that by using something called as a heading tag. So a heading tag is basically, how we write a heading tag is like this, right? We start off with a left angle bracket. We follow it up with the name of the tag, which in this case is H1, right? H stands for heading and 1 stands for the size of 1, right? So there are different types or there are different sizes of headings that you can use. And I will go over this in the next slide. But for now, this is a heading of size 1, right? So we start off with a left angle bracket, a heading of size 1, which is H1, right? Which is also the name of the tag, a right angle bracket. Then between this, we put the heading that we want to see, right? So this will output something called as a heading tag, okay? And then we close it, okay, with a left angle bracket, a forward slash, H1, and then a right angle bracket, okay? So there are, like I told you, there are different sizes of heading tags, right? And some of them are listed here, right? There are 6 different, sizes for headings that we can choose, okay? So, we have H2, right? We have H3, we have H4, we have H5, and we have H6. So these are all going to create different sizes of headings, right? And I will, when we get to the practical session of this workshop, I will show you what the difference between each of them is. Okay, so heading 2 lets the browser know that this is going to be a heading of size 2, and it will create on the website it will create a heading tag of size 2. Okay, and similarly with H3, similarly with H4, similarly with H5, and similarly with H6. Okay. One of the other common things that we will see on websites is buttons, right? A button to go here, a button to go there, or a button to create something. For example, when you go to Google search, you type in your query, and at the bottom of it you have something called as search, right? It says search. That is a button. Or for example, when you go to Facebook, right? When you go to facebook.com, it has a place for you to enter the email and a place for you to enter your password, right? And then after that, there is a place where you can click on, login. It says there is a button called login, right? So that is created with the help of a button tag, okay? So creating a button is very simple in HTML, right? It follows the same principles that we have seen so far. So to create a tag, we open a left angle bracket, we put the name of the tag in between it, and then we close it with a right angle bracket. The name of the button is what goes within the tag, right? So in this example, we've said that the button is called click me, okay? And then we close the tag by creating a left angle bracket, putting a forward slash after that, putting the name of the tag, which in this case is button, and then putting the right angle button, okay? Now, another common thing that we see on websites is actually links, right? So this will take you from one place on the internet to another place on the internet, right? For example, if your website has a link that says link to Google, right? So when you click on that, it takes you to Google. This is how you would create that link, right? So you would create something called as an anchor tag, right? So it's called an anchor tag, but unlike other tags like the button and heading, we don't spell the entire name out. We just put a, right? So we open a left angle bracket, we put A, we leave a space, right? And then we put in this, what is being highlighted, right? So this is called a href, or a hypertext reference. The hypertext reference is what tells the browser that, this is what I'm referring to, and this is where I want the link to go, right? And within the quotes, okay, we put in the location that we want to go to. So in this example, we are going to google.com. So within the double quotes, I would put google.com, right? And then we close the starting tag, right? We put the right angle bracket here. And then we say, we say what we want the link to say, right? So for example, over here, it would be link to Google. So this would show link to Google in blue color with an underline. And this, clicking on that would take you to google.com. Okay. Now we close this the same way as all other tags. We started off with a left angle bracket, a forward slash, right? And then the name of the tag, and then the right angle bracket. Okay. Now, one more thing that we see very frequently on our websites is to list different things. Okay, so for example, we would have on websites a list of a list of different names, a list of different nicknames for an actor, right? Or probably a list of different ingredients that are needed for a recipe, right? Or a list of top 10 best places to go and visit. You get the idea, right? These are lists of items. And for creating lists in HTML, we use something called as a UL tag. UL is short for unordered list, right? So it is something called as, so whatever comes in this list will come out as a list of bullet points, okay? So we have a UL tag, and within that, we have an LI tag. So remember when I told you that HTML element, a tag could have several different tags within it? This is a very, very perfect example of that. So we have a UL tag, and within that we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 LI tags, right? So let's just look at the LI tag a little bit more closely, right? An LI tag stands for a list item, right? So within a list, you have a list item, okay? And we started off by the left angle bracket, the name of the tag, which in this case is LI, and then we close it by the right angle bracket. And then we put in what we want the list item to be. So in this example, it is list item 1. So the first bullet point would be list item 1, right? Or if it was, for example, one of the ingredients in a recipe, it would be, 3 onions or something like that, right? So similarly, you would write out the other items in the list, right? Following the same syntax. So you would open the LI tag, you would write what you would want the tag to list, you would write what you want the tag to say, and then you would close the tag, okay? Similarly with the third list item and the fourth list item. So what this would do is create a bullet list with 4 items, with the 4 items being list item 1, list item 2, list item 3, and list item 4. Okay. Now, one other common tag that is used in HTML or in websites is called as a div tag, right? DIV. So div is short for division, and this also could mean section, right? This is mostly used for people that are writing the HTML language, right? For us, for programmers, we would use a div tag so that it's easier for us to organize the code and it is easier for us to read, what we have written, right? For example, we could come back 20 days later to what we had written, the HTML that we had written, and we would still be able to understand it, right? So that is the reason why we use div tags. But these are actually used for segregating different sections of the website. Now, when we go on to the practical session of this workshop, I will actually show you this tag in action and what you can do with it, right? So this is like the one tag in HTML that can be anything that you want it to be. If you want this to be a circle, you can let it be a circle, or if you want it to be a square, you can make it a square. Whereas in all the other things, they have a very predefined use of what that tag is going to be. For example, a UL tag is going to be a list of unordered list items or a bulleted list, right? Or for example, a tag would be a link to a particular page, right? Or for example, a button would be a button. You cannot make these things anything else than what they are, right? So that is where the div tag comes in. Much like when we are playing cards and we have the Joker card, it can do anything, right? So that is very similar to what a div tag is in HTML. Okay. So you've seen examples of various different tags, right? You've seen examples of the different things that we can create in HTML. But you might be thinking, okay, I know all of these things, but how exactly do I put all this together, right? So there are a few steps involved, right? Firstly, we create a HTML file, and we name this with a .html extension, right? So this could be something as simple as my first website .html, right? So you can create this file. For example, I'll show it to you right now, right? So I can open Notepad, right? And I can go to File. I can say New File, right? And then I can save as, right? And I'll wait for it to open up. And then I can go to my desktop, okay? And then I will just say my first website.html, okay? And then I'll click on save. So this is saved to my desktop, right? And I'll just show it to you as well. So as you can see here, my first website.html exists. This is on my desktop, okay? Now, the next thing that we do is write out the basic HTML structure that makes up the website, okay? So this is what, this is what we get. This is the basic structure of any HTML website. You have seen all the tags that that I showed you before. If you just put them into an HTML file, it's not enough for the browser to know what it is, right? So this is kind of necessary for the browser to understand what the file is and to understand what we're trying to achieve with that file, right? With that HTML file. So there's a certain structure, right? We start off with the HTML tag, right? So this is the first thing that we create. This is the first tag that we create within any HTML file, okay? So for example, I'm just going to type this out over here, right? Let me just zoom in. Oops. Okay. Just give me a moment. Okay. So hopefully you can see better now. Yeah. So I'm just going to type in, I'll start off from the beginning. I'm just going to type in HTML, right? So this is the first tag. So I started off with a left angle bracket, right? Then I type in HTML, right? And then I close it with a right angle bracket, okay? Now this tag, okay, can have several different tags. So before I move on to that though, I just want to show you how to close this tag, right? So I type in the left angle bracket, I put in a /, right? And I type in HTML, okay? That's it, it's just as simple as that. So this will let the browser know that this is an HTML file and that this is an HTML document, okay? Now, let's just come back to this, right? Here you can see that I have a tag called head, right? So what is a head tag? So this head tag is something that tells the browser that, hey, this is an HTML file, and there are certain things, there's certain information about this HTML file that I think you should know. And the browser will take this information, right, and it will use it in the way that it sees fit. Okay, so for example, I have a tag called title, right? And within that, I have written my first website. So this will, the browser will take this information, right? It will look for the title tag. Then it will see what the value for that is or what the content for that is. In this case, it's my first website. And it will show that on the top of your tab. If you open Google, for example, in the tab, you can see Google, right? And when you search for something, it changes to whatever you have searched for, right? So that is achieved by changing the title tag. Okay, so I'll do that here, right? I will create a head tag, okay? And then I will close it by typing in /head, okay? Now, remember I told you before that a HTML tag can have several different tags. This is another example that we're seeing of it, right? So HTML is built with that basic philosophy in mind, right? Now we are going to create another tag within this, and I'm going to call it title, right? And I'm going to say my first website, right? And then I'm going to close it. So how do I close tags? I type in a left angle bracket, then I put in a /, and then I put in the name of the tag, which in this case is title, right? And then I close it. And then I close it by using the right angle bracket, okay? Now let me go back to the presentation. I have one more tag here, right? This tag is called as a body tag, right? So the body tag is the tag that has all the other tags, right? All the tags that we've seen so far, the image tag, the heading tag, all of that is to be put within the body tag, okay? So let me come back here and I will create a body tag, okay? So I'm typing on body, I'm closing it with the right angle, and then, let me close this initially, right? So I'll put the /, type in body, and then put in the right angle bracket, okay? So for now, I'll just save this, right? And then what I will do is I will open up this website. I'll open up this HTML file in my browser. So I can just right click on it, click on open with, and then select a browser of your choice. I'm using Firefox, but you can use, whatever you have, Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, right? So when I click on that, it's actually going to open up, as you can see here, okay? So right now, you're not going to see anything, right? But if you observe closely at the top here, you can see that it says my first website. And if you come back to the HTML file, I actually say that this is my first website, right? So I can actually change this, right, to something else. I can say, for example, hello world, and I can save it. And I can come back here and I'll refresh this, right? I'll refresh the browser, and you can see it changes to the top. It changes to the top, right? It says "Hello World" now instead of my first website. So that's your first taste of a website. Okay. Now let's just go over this one by one again, right? The HTML tag. This contains all the other tags in the HTML document. This is what lets a browser know that this document that we are viewing right now is a HTML document, right? The head tag contains various information that the browser will, interpret, and it will use this to execute the file. For example, we have the title tag, which will let the browser know what it should name the tab as, right? The browser tab as. Okay. Then we have the title tag, which we took an example of right now. Okay. Then we have the body tag, which will contain every other tag in this, in the HTML file, like the image tag, the h1 tag, and the other tags, right? Okay, so we have seen a few tags now. We've gotten a good understanding of what HTML website is and what tags are. But I also mentioned that I will come back to a certain point at a later point in time, right? So every tag can carry something called as an attribute. Okay, they can carry special instructions that lets the browser know how it should execute that particular tag as, right? These are called attributes. And you might be wondering what these are, right? So we've already seen this before, right? For example, when we look at the image tag, right? We saw that we had that src, right? Is equal to double quotes and image.jpg, right? So that is called an attribute. Okay, an attribute. So this attribute lets the browser know that the image that you should display is actually image.jpg. It's called image.jpg, right? And that is in fact the website. That is in fact the image that it will display. Okay, great. Now, one thing that we need to understand here is that all HTML elements can have attributes, right? So we've seen already the image tag. It has an attribute called src, which stands for source, right? And here is another example. Okay, the HTML tag can have an attribute called lang, which stands for language. Okay, so in this particular example, it says lang is equal to double quotes en, right? Which means that the language is English, right? En is one of the ISO standards for displaying English, right? For showing or one of the names for denoting what English is. So we have different things like that. We have English, we have FR for French, then we have ES for Espanol, which is Spanish, and so on and so forth, right? Now, like I mentioned, attributes provide additional information about the element, right? Here's an example of an anchor tag, which is basically a link, right? So over there, we said that href stands for hypertext reference, right? That is called an attribute. So the href is the name of the attribute, right? Now, one thing that you might have noticed in all these previous examples is that all of these attributes have one of the same. It has a very similar structure, right? So let me just go here and quickly show you, right? So I'm going to create a tag called image, right? So I started off with a left angle bracket, img. I'm going to press space, right? I'm going to put an attribute called src, just called source, right? And then I'm going to put an equal to symbol. Then I'm going to open a double quote, right? And then I'm going to type in image.jpg, right? And then I'm going to close it with the double quote, right? Now, remember that an image tag is a self-closing tag. So we don't put a right angle bracket. We actually put a / followed by the right angle bracket, right? So I'll again create one more tag. I'll create anchor tag. So I'm going to open the left angle bracket. I'm going to put the name of the tag, which in this case is A, right? I'm going to put a space. Now I'll type the name of the attribute, which is href. Put an equal to symbol, right? Open the double quote. Type in google.com, right? And then I'm going to close it, okay? And then I'm going to say link to Google, right? Then I'm going to close this, right? I'm going to close it by opening the left angle bracket, / typing A, and then the right angle bracket, okay? So there's something that you might have noticed by this point, right? Every attribute has the name of the attribute followed by an equal to symbol, followed by a double quote, right? So this is called as a name, right? And whatever goes within the double quotes is called as the value, okay? So let me just change that quickly, very quickly. So I'm going to call this name, right? And I'm going to call this the value. So this is called as a name value pair. In programming, you might come across this very often if you're learning other languages as well. So this is called as a name value pair, right? So name could be, for example, href, or it could be src, right? And the value could be, google.com, or it could be image.jpg, okay? Okay, now let's come back to this, okay? So the other thing that you might have noticed is that we never specify attributes in any other place other than the start tag, right? So if you look at image, right, this does not have a closing tag, by the way. This only has a start tag, right? So this, is within the first thing, and this is within the starting tag, and the href, this is also within the starting tags. This is the closing tag, and this entire thing is the starting tag, right? So we can see that the attribute that we're typing in is actually within the starting tag, okay? We never ever specify attributes anywhere else in HTML. It always goes within the starting tag, right? And here's the same example of HTML that we saw previously, right? So this is the lang attribute, and this is also present within the starting tag. Okay. So like I mentioned before, it goes in name pair values. So this is the name, href is the name, google.com is the value, lang is the name, and nen is the value, right? All right, okay. Great. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that every HTML element or every HTML tag has its own set of attributes, right? And we have already seen this, right? We have seen, an anchor tag has an attribute called href, and an image tag has an attribute called src, and an HTML tag has, attribute of lang, So we have seen that. We have already seen that, right? However, it's also important to note, it's also good to know that there are some attributes which is common across all, all tags, right? Now, there are quite a few such attributes, right? But, in day-to-day, when you're building websites on a day-to-day basis, or when you're, just trying HTML out, when you're learning HTML, you are only going to use two of these, right? So these are called as global attributes, right? And the two of them are the class attribute and the ID attribute, right? So the name of the attributes are class, and the name of the attributes, and the name of the other attribute is ID, okay? So let's take an example of each of these, right, and see what these are. So the class attribute, is specified. It's specified like any other attribute. You have the name of the attribute. We have an equal to symbol. Then we have the double quotes, and within that we have the value. Now it's important to know that class can have multiple values separated by a space, right? So in this example, we have red hyphen text and we have underline. So we have two values. We have red hyphen text and we have underline. Right. So what exactly is the significance of using a class attribute on an HTML tag? Right. So this is how you can you can tell other programming languages, like for example CSS or JavaScript, where to find that particular element. Right. So the class attribute is what is used. The value in the class attribute is used to reference, right, this particular element in other programming languages like CSS or JavaScript. Okay, and class in particular can have more than one value, like we've seen. So we have red hyphen text, which is one value, right, and underline, which is the next value, right. Now, one other thing to note is that this class name, red-text, can be used. We can use it. For example, in this anchor tag, right? I'll just type class is equal to open the quote, and type red-text, right? I can use it I can use it in CSS or in JavaScript to refer to this particular tag, right? I can use it to refer to this particular tag, or I can also use it to refer to this particular tag, right? If I put in class, for example, class is equal to, I open the quote, red text, right? So now if I use red text in CSS, then it will mean that I'm targeting either this image tag or this anchor tag. Okay, I'll come back to this later when we are doing the CSS course tomorrow, but it's good to keep in mind. Okay, so that's what I mean when I say that classes can be reused. We can use the same value, the red text value, in multiple different elements. And when you're using it in CSS and JavaScript, it will mean each of those elements. So, right. The other thing that we have, the other attribute that we have is called as an ID, right? So an ID attribute is it's used to signify one particular instance of an element, right? Like for example, we have the class attribute over here, right? So we have said red text, and this is the same for both of these, right? It's the same in this anchor tag, and it's the same in this image tag. So this red text can actually signify both. But what if you wanted to, just select one of these, right? What if you just wanted to select one of those? That is where we use an ID, that is where we use the ID attribute. So I will use an ID attribute over here for the anchor tag. So I type in ID followed by equal to, followed by the quote, and then by typing out welcome, right? So the value is welcome, and I can use this value now. I can use welcome to refer to just this particular anchor tag in either JavaScript or in CSS, right? So whenever I say welcome, it will mean that I'm referring to just this tag and not to any other tag. So one thing to note here is because it is so unique, the ID text, the value that we use, for example, over here we have used welcome text, right? This needs to be unique throughout the entire HTML file. So this is an HTML file, right? So I'm using an ID called welcome-text, right? So this needs to be unique, throughout this entire HTML file. So that means that I cannot have, this ID is equal to welcome text on this image tag, for example. If I do that, then what's going to happen is that the browser is going to get confused by which element we are referring to, and it's not going to do anything, right? That particular instruction that we give it will have no effect, right? Okay. Now, one other thing that is very important when we are talking about websites is taking an input from user, right? For example, we might want to ask the user what their name is, or maybe we want to ask the user, what their favorite color is, or maybe we want to ask, the user what their email address is, right? And how do we do that? How do we allow users to enter text? We do that with something called as a form, right? So what an HTML form does is it allows us to accept input through text fields from the user, right? Now, once we have that input, once we have that text that the user has typed in, we can take that, we can send it to the server, right? Where the server will be used to where the server will use this information to see what the name is, for example, and probably do some logic on that, right? Probably if the name is Amogh, it will say welcome Amogh, or if the name is something else, it will say welcome whatever name it is, right? So the server will process it and it will send the result back to the browser, right? So how do we define a form, right? How do we create a form in HTML? It's very simple, right? So we have something called as the form tag, which is basically a left angle bracket followed by the word form, and then the right angle bracket, and then we close it by putting a / in front of the form, right? So we have the form here, right? And within that we have several different tags. So we actually have already seen this tag in a previous slide today, right? This is called as an input tag, and this allows us to take in, some text from the user, right? So in this example, we have an attribute called type, okay, which has a value of text. So this lets the browser know that I'm asking, I want you to show the user a text field, and I want him to type into it, right? And then we have another attribute called placeholder, which has a value of first name, right? So you might wonder what that looks like, right? So this is what it's going to look like, right? So this is a text field, and notice that we have said placeholder is equal to first name. So that is what it displays, right? So I can start typing, right? I can say Amogh, right? And you can see that it actually, the entire placeholder, the first name disappears, right? And it comes back when I delete the text. So I'll type it in again, and you can see that it goes, right? So this way we can, take in certain bits of information. In this example, we're taking in the first name and the last name of the user, but we can do that, right? So I can type in my full name, right? And now you have the name of the user, and you can do whatever you want to do with it, right? So yeah. Now let me just go back to that type, right? That attribute called type. So this has a value of text, and this is what it allows me to do, right? It allows me to put in anything, not just first name or last name. I can just put in text, for example, and it's going to accept that. Or I can put in hello, right? And it will accept that. But what if we want to accept other things, like what if we want to accept an email address from the user, right? So we do that by changing the value of the attribute type to email, right? So when I do that, this is what I get, right? So it says I've given the value of the placeholder attribute to be enter your email now. So it shows up as enter your email in this input tag, right? And I can type out my email. So Amogh at, right? So I put out my email address, and I can now, the browser now has the email address, and I can do whatever I want with it. Now I just want to draw your attention to something very quickly with the email type, right? So it's not just, what is the difference? I can enter my email address here as well, right? It's not going to make any difference, right? So you might be asking, what is the difference if I put in email in place of text, right? Well, I'll show you. Now the browser knows that this is, whatever they're going to enter is going to be an email address. And there are only a few ways that you can write email addresses. For example, it will be the name followed by the @ symbol followed by gmail.com, or followed by something else, right? Something.com, right? So the browser knows that if they enter anything else, for example, if they enter Amogh, right? Okay, yeah, there we go. So the browser knows that if we enter Amogh, right, that is not a valid email address. It does not have the @ symbol. It does not have .com anywhere. It does not have Gmail. So the browser is going to display a red border around the text field to signify that there is an error over there, right? And then when you hover over it, you see a small message from the browser that says, please enter an email address. Right? So this is one of the ways that the browser makes our life easier by knowing that whenever someone is going to, whenever they enter an email address, it's not going to be wrong, right? So I'll just show it to you, right? So I'll put in amogh.com, right? And then I'll click outside. It still stays there because it knows that this is not an email address as well, right? There is no @ symbol. So let's change that, right? Now I put in amogh@gmail.com, and now you see that the red border around this thing disappears, right? So this does not happen with a text tag. So let me just show you that, right? So I'll just put in amogh.com. So it does not know that that is not an email address, right? So that's one of the important reasons why we need to use the attribute type on input, so that the browser knows what it can expect, what the user will put in, right? And then take action accordingly. Now, one other input type that we have is called as a submit. It's called a submit, right? So this will basically create a button, and upon clicking this button, it will submit the form to the server, and the server will process the information, and it's going to show a particular result on that page, right? So that's what we're going to see. Okay, that's what we're going to see. Okay, so when we put in an input tag, we type in we put the type attribute and the value for it as submit, and then an attribute called value with the value for that as submit. This is what we're going to see, right? So I'll just show this in operation for you as well, right? So let's just create. So I'm just going to delete all of this, right? I'm going to create a form. Okay, I'm going to create a form tag. I'm going to drop to the new line by pressing enter. I'm going to create an input, right? I'm going to create an attribute called type, and the value for this is going to be submit, right? And then I'm going to create a value called attribute, the value for which will be submit. Okay. And remember, input is one of those tags that is an open tag, so there is no closing tag that comes with it. So we just close it with a right angle bracket, right? And then keep in mind that we have actually not closed the form tag, right? So we do that now. We open the left angle bracket, we type in the / and then we type in form followed by the right angle bracket. I'm just going to save this right now, right? I have this file open in my browser and I'm going to refresh it, right? And then we can see a submit button over here, right? It's going to create a submit button. So right now it's not going to do anything, right? It's not going to do anything. It's just going to reload the same page when I click on it. But this is how you create a button, right? This is one of the other ways of creating a button. You can also create a button with a button tag, right? But the button, but the input type is equal to submit. What we saw here, what we saw here, this can only be used within a form tag. It cannot be used outside of a form tag. So just keep that in mind, okay? Now we've seen certain ways to take in text from the user, right? We have seen how to take in, email addresses. We've seen in how to take names. We've seen how to take, so the problem with all of this is that these are all just like one single line of text. So I'll just demonstrate that, right? I'm going to go back here and I'm going to come to the first example that I showed you, right? Where it says first name and last name. And I'm just going to type out keys, right? I'm just going to keep typing. Now, as you can notice, it's actually, scrolling horizontally as I type. It's not, as I keep typing, it's just going to the left, right? It's not creating new lines. So the input type text is going to create a single line text field, right? But what if we wanted the user to type in a story, or maybe, what if we wanted them to type a paragraph, several different paragraphs? We do that with something called as a text area tag, right? So a text area tag will look like this. So it has we started off with an open left angle bracket. Then we type in the name of the tag, which is called text area, which is TEXTAREA, right? Then we have two different attributes, which I will come to, right? But then we close it, right? And then we close the entire tag out by putting a forward slash before the name of the tag. It's important to know that there is no content that goes within this tag, right? We never put in anything inside that, right? However, there are two attributes over here. Okay, we have an attribute called rows and we have an attribute called columns, right? Columns. Rows stands for rows and cols stands for columns, right? And the value that I've put in for rows is 10, right? It's a numeric value that I put in. So this lets the browser know that it needs to create a text area with 10 lines or with 10 rows, right? And when it sees the attribute calls, it knows that it has to create an element with 30 different, with 30 different spaces, right? With 30 different columns. So what you can basically do over there is you can type in 30 different words or 30 different letters, right? So I'll just like to demonstrate that this is the case with the text area below, right? So we have said that rows is 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type 1 through 10 on a new line, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So as you can see over here, it displays all of it, right? It displays 1 through 10 because we've mentioned rows is equal to 10. But if we mention something different over there, for example, rows is equal to 5 or rows is equal to 1, then it's going to show it separately, right? This is very similar with columns as well. So it's only going to allow you to type in 1 in one row 30 times, right? So if you count this out, it's only going to be 30. Okay. So, okay. Okay, now we've come to the practical part of the session, right? You've already seen some of it, but I'd like to show it to you in a little bit more better way. So if you're practicing, if you're following this along at home, what you can do is you can go to this website called codepen.io, right? I'll just put it up on the screen as well. I'm going to type it here. Okay, so it is codepen.io, right? So you can go to this website, right? And then you can practice your HTML and your CSS and your JavaScript, right? You can go to this website and you can enter it. Right? So it's going to open something like this. Towards the top left, it says create pen, right? So you can just click on that and you get this, right? So the reason that I chose this is so that I can type in the code over here, right? And you can see how it will look like immediately on the right hand side. So this is very useful if you are learning HTML or if you're learning CSS or JavaScript, you don't have to go to a separate application to see what the result of that is. So you can experiment with a lot of different things and see how it's going to react, right? So let's start off with the very basics, right, of whatever we have seen today so far. So how do we create a tag, right? So I'll start off with it over here. Towards the left, you can see my code, by the way, right? So I'm going to start off with a heading tag, right? So I open a left angle bracket. Okay, I'm going to type in H followed by a 1, right? Then I'm going to close this, right, by using the right angle bracket. Then I'm going to type in this is a heading 1 tag, okay? And you might have noticed at this point that it's already showing how it's going to look like as I'm typing on the right hand side. So this is one of the best ways to learn HTML, right? It'll allow you to explore different options and variations of each tag that you create. So let's close the tag. So that will be done by typing out the left angle bracket / h1 and the right angle. So let's wait for it to load. And this is what it's going to create, right? It's going to create a heading tag, right? So you might be curious to know what the other heading tags look like as well, right? So let's do that now. Let's create a h2 tag. So I'm going to open a left angle bracket followed by a h2, right? Then I'm going to close it. Then I'm going to type this is a heading 2 tag, right? And then I'm going to close it. Now you can see immediately that there's a difference between how a h1 tag looks like and how a h2 tag looks like, right? The heading 1 tag, the h1 tag is much more bigger, and the heading tag is smaller than that, right? So let's quickly go out and go ahead and lay out all the 6 heading tags to see what the difference is, right? So I'm going to open a left angle bracket, h3, okay, right angle bracket, and I'm going to say this is a heading 3 tag, right? Then I'm going to close the tag by opening the left angle bracket, the / name of the tag, and then right angle. So you can see on the right hand side that now it says this is the heading 3 tag, and it is smaller than either the heading 2 or the heading 1 tag, right? So let's quickly see what the other 3 tags look like. So left angle bracket, name of the tag, which is h4, right angle bracket. This is a heading 4 tag, right? And left angle bracket / name of the tag, which is h4 and the right angle. And towards the right, you can see this is the heading 4 tag. Okay. Similarly, left angle bracket, name of the tag, which is h5, right angle bracket. This is the heading 5 tag. Left angle bracket / h5, right angle. So as you can see on the right hand side, the headings, the size of these headings are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, right? So this is very useful when, this is one thing that Tim Berners-Lee found very useful when he, was typing out scientific documents. It was very easy for him to segregate, different sections within sections. And he could just say, okay, this has a bigger heading, so this has more prominence than the heading below this, and so on and so forth, right? So let me quickly create the heading 6 as well. So left angle bracket, h6, right angle bracket. This is a heading 6 tag. Left angle bracket / name of the tag, right? There we go. Okay. So this is what headings look like, right? Now let's experiment with a link. You might be curious as to what that will look like, right? So let's quickly separate this content out with a HR tag. HR tag is called as a horizontal rule. The horizontal rule will, display a line as you can see on the right hand side. This is a very quick way to, differentiate different sections, by the way. So let's create an A tag, right? So left angle bracket followed by the name of the tag, which is A. Let's type in an attribute called href, okay, and give it a value of google.com, right? Then right angle bracket, then I'll type in go to Google, right? And I'm going to close this. So / name of the tag, right angle bracket. Okay. So as you can see over here, it actually creates, go to Google, right? So just give me a moment. I'll just make this bigger so that everyone can see. Font size will be 25 pixels. Okay. Okay, so yeah, you're back. And as you can see, we said go to Google as the content of the tag, right? And that's what is being displayed here. So links are displayed blue in color, and they have an underline, which signifies that you can click on them. So if I click on this, it's actually going to go to Google. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, and you can see that it opens google.com in a new tab, right? So open google.com. Okay, so there. Okay. Now, you've seen what an anchor tag looks like. Let's look at one more example, right? Let's look at what an anchor tag will look like with something different, right? href is equal to wiki. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do https://wikipedia.com, right? And then I'm going to put the right angle bracket, and then I'm going to say uh, Wikipedia, right? And then I'm going to close the anchor tag. So as you can see, it creates a new link on the right, which is Wikipedia. And if you click on that, it goes to Wikipedia, right? So it opens Wikipedia, as you can see. So there we go. Okay. So we've seen tags, right? Let's create one more HR tag, right? And you might have observed that the HR tag is another example for an open-ended tag, like the input tags that we saw previously. So you don't need to have a closing tag for this as well, okay? Right. Now, let's take a look at some of the other things that we saw. Let's take a look at the image tag, right? So left angle bracket, img, which is the name of the tag. We are going to put an attribute called src, right? We'll fill the value for this shortly, right? And then we're going to close the tag by putting a forward slash and then the right angle. Now, if you're using Code 10, there is a very cool feature that you can use here, right? So at the bottom of the screen, you can see this thing called assets, right? So you can click on assets. It should bring up this screen, and you can select photos from the left, right? And you can, click on any of these photos, and it will copy the URL for that particular photo, right? And then you can close this, okay? And then come back to the image tag, right? And put the cursor between the two quotes, between the two quotation marks, and then you can paste this in, right? You can paste the URL in, and we can wait for 2 minutes, right? And we can see that the image is appeared here. But one thing that you might have noticed is that this is a very big image, right? It's very big. You can see nothing, right? So there's a very quick solution for that. Now, remember when I told you that each each tag has their own attributes. Sometimes tags can have multiple attributes as well, right? So we're going to define a new attribute for the image tag called width, okay? So that will be width, okay? And we're going to specify the value for this as 100, okay? So now let's wait for it to load, and we'll see what happens. Okay, now you can see that the image has become very small, right? So this is 100 pixel big, right? Okay, and we can make this a little bit more bigger. We can say 1000 instead of 100, right? And we can see that it immediately becomes a lot more bigger, right? We can see the entire image without having to scroll about, right? you can see, you can take in the beauty of this system, right? So one more attribute that you can use in an image tag is called as the height, right? So height is also very similar. The value for it is again going to be numerical. So if I say 1000 by 1000, this image is now going to be 1000 pixels wide by 1000 pixels high, right? So this is how it's going to look. Okay, great. Okay, now let's look at the paragraph tag, right? So this is something that we saw in one of the earlier slides, right? So how do we define a paragraph tag? We open the left angle bracket, we put in the name of the tag, which is P, right? Then we put in the right angle bracket, then we type in something. For example, my name is Amogh, right? And then we close the paragraph tag by opening the left angle bracket, putting a forward slash, putting in the name of the tag, and then by putting the right angle bracket. Okay, so if you notice now, I'll just scroll down below the image, and you can see, that it creates a paragraph called "My name is Amogh." Obviously, this can be a lot more bigger, right? You can have a paragraph with 400 words, for example, and it will display, right? Okay, so paragraph, the other important thing to note is that when you want to add another paragraph below this, you don't, you don't type in enter, right? That's not how paragraph tags are supposed to be used. You just create another paragraph tag, right? So you create the paragraph tag by using the left angle bracket, the name of the tag, right angle bracket. This is another paragraph tag. Okay, and there you go. So when we scroll down below, right, we see that we now have a new tag which is called, we have a new tag which is, this is another paragraph tag. Okay, so that's a new paragraph. All right. Okay. So I have created something that we'll be using as a basis to work on throughout the course of this workshop. So at the end of the day, at the end of the 3-day workshop, you will be creating a website for a very simple website for a cafe, right? That is, going to open up in town shortly. Okay, so this is what we'll be building, right? Just waiting for it to load. So this is what we'll be building, right? So we have the name of the cafe at the top called Cafe Workshop. We have, some text here. We have an image, right? We have a place where they're showing the items available on the menu, right? And it even has a form, okay? All right. So our objective here, and at the very top, we also have a list of menu items that, clicking on which will take you to different sections or different pages of the website, right? So we will be building this using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? And this will be something that will help us understand HTML a little bit more closer, right? So today we'll be working on the HTML part of this, right? And tomorrow we'll be taking a look at how we can, take this to the next step by using CSS, right? So let's just come back to our code pen that we had created, right? I'm going to delete everything within this, okay? I'm just going to select everything and then I'm going to delete it. So we're starting off from a clean slate, right? So let's just wait for it to load, okay? So now you can see that there's nothing on this, right? So we'll start off with this, right? So at the top, okay, this is basically a list of items, right? This is a list of items. And we've seen how to create a list of items, right? So we create a list of items by using the UL tag. So we create a UL tag by opening the left angle bracket, okay? By typing in UL, by closing it. Okay, going to a new line, opening the left angle bracket, creating an li tag, right angle bracket, and list item 1. Okay, then we're closing the li tag with a /li and right angle bracket. Okay, we're creating one more list item just to give you an idea. Okay, so list item 2, right? Okay, so and then we're going to close the ul tag, right? And there we go. Now, one thing that you will need to keep in mind here is that whatever you put in within the li tag, can be whatever we put in within this is what shows up there, right? Look, so for example, if we say carrot, right, and we wait for it to load, it says carrot on the right hand side, right? And if we say, onions, it's going to say onions on the right hand side. So this creates a bullet list, right? This is going to create a bullet list, okay? So let's keep this in mind and just take a look at what we'll be working with again, right? So at the top, we can see that we have this, we have home, about, menu, and contact, right? So let's replicate this on what we're working with right now, right? So let's replace carrot with home, right? So that's one, right? Then let's put in about, okay? So we'll replace onion with about, okay? And now let's create 2 more list items, okay? And here we will call it menu. The third one is going to be called menu, right? And we close the li tag. We will create a new li tag, and then we will call this contact, okay? Okay, there we go. Now, one thing that you might have noticed is that this does not quite look the same. This is laid out in a single line, and it has a gray background behind it, right? And you might be wondering why that is. We have written the same code, so why is it that it shows up differently over here? Well, the reason for that is this what I've created here also has CSS, right? That is what is making it look like this. That is what is giving it a background color of gray, and that is what is making it display in a single line, right? So one thing that you need to understand is that while the HTML part of the website can give you everything that you want with regards to the content, to the structure, to the skeleton, right? You cannot style it without using some form of CSS, right? So if you consider the human body, right, for example, everyone has skeletons underneath, right? Everyone has a skeleton, but what makes them unique, what makes them different, is actually the flesh on top of it. So the flesh or the skin, right? So similarly, if you take that same synology, right, the HTML is the skeleton and the CSS is the flesh or the skin. Okay, so this is going for today. We're just going to create the basic layout, right? We're going to put in all the content and we're going to put in the images and all of that. But when we start learning CSS tomorrow, we'll start changing this to make it look something like this. Okay, so let's go back, right? So we have over here a heading called Cafe Workshop. So I'm going to create that over here, right? And let me create a H1 for this, okay? Because that is the biggest. And I'm going to call this Cafe Workshop, okay? Right, there we go. Okay, there we go. So we have something called as Cafe Workshop over here. Now, if you notice, we have something called we have one more line below that, right? We have a line below that that says we are a new cafe open in town. Come check out our food and enjoy a nice treat. So we're going to type this out over there, and we're going to put it within a paragraph tag. Okay, so I'm going to create a p tag. Okay, I'm going to say we are a new cafe in town. Come drop by for a visit, right? And then I'm going to close the paragraph tag. So that'll be the left hand bracket, followed by the forward slash, paragraph tag, and then the right hand bracket. Okay, so there we go. And you can see on the right hand side that we actually have a heading 1 tag that displays cafe workshop, and then a paragraph tag that displays we are a new cafe in town, come drop by for a visit. Okay, great. Let's go back to the design, right? So we have over here. So we are done with the top part where it says, where we have the different navigation links that says home, about, menu, and contact. We have added in the heading 1 tag. We have added in the paragraph tag that gives that welcomes people onto their website. Now we're going to add this image, right? So to add the image, we're going to do it the same way, right? We're going to create an image tag. So that will be the left angle bracket followed by the image tag, an attribute called src, okay? And then I'm going to close it with a forward slash and the right angle bracket. Now, for the image, you can do the same thing that I've done, right? You can go to assets, you can click on photos, okay? And at the top right hand side over here it says search photos. You can just click on that and search for food, right? Just give me a moment. Still appears to be loading. Let me reopen that. Right. So it says search photos, right? So I'm going to just put in food and then I'm going to press enter. Right. Now I'm just going to go through and see if there's any image that I like that I can use, right? So let's see if there's anything more. There we go. I found something that looks good. So I'm going to click on this image and I'm going to, it'll copy the URL to the clipboard, right? Now I'm going to paste this within the source attribute, okay? So I paste it and I get this. Now we wait for it to open, right? And you can see that the image has come, but it's again too big. So let's add in the attribute, so width, okay? Which says 800. So I'm going to say 800, and for height, I'm going to say 600. All right. So if you wait for it to load, we can see that this is what it looks like right now. Okay. So there we go. We have a bunch of navigation menus at the top. We have the name of the cafe. We have the new cafe in town, right? We are a new cafe in town. And then we have the image, right? So let's just go back to the design again, right? And now we see that we have something called our menu, right? So let's quickly create that, right? It's again very simple. It's a heading tag followed by a paragraph tag. So let's go back and create that, right? So H1, right? I'm going to say our menu, okay? And then, enjoy some of our delicious food. And then I'm going to close the paragraph tag. Okay, so if I just come down, if I scroll down, right, wait for it to load. If I scroll down, you can see that it now says our menu and enjoy some of our delicious food, right? And now there is actually another image that we see in here. What we're going to do for now is we're going to take the same image, right? We're going to copy it. We're going to paste it below this paragraph tag, right? So select it, copy it, and then I'm going to paste it, right? So now if you wait for it to load, we can see that as you scroll down, the images, we can see the image again. Now, when we move on to the next day, we will replace this. But for now, let's just go ahead with this, okay? And now you can see that towards the right-hand side, we have a list item that says 10, dish 1 through to dish 10, right? So I'm going to create something very similar, right? How do we do that? Now we've seen that we can create lists by using the UL, right? And then I can say li, and then I can say dish 1, and then I can create a li tag. I can open another li tag. I can say dish 2, and then I can close the li tag, and then I can close the ul tag. So we have created a list. We have created a list which has a list of 2 dishes, right? Dish 1 and dish 2. So if we come down, we can see that it has created a bulleted list. But if we go back to our design, it shows numbers. It does not show bullets. So how do we do that? How do we achieve that? Okay, so there is another tag very similar to the UL tag, but this is called an OL tag, right? Which is called an ordered list. If you recall, right? UL stands for unordered list and OL stands for ordered list, right? So if you scroll down, we can now see that it says 1, 2, dish 1, dish 2, right? So great. Let's go back. Okay, so we have that, right? So I'm just going to copy and paste this a couple of times, right? And then I'm going to change these, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have a list of 8 dishes now. If you scroll down, we have a list of 8 dishes. Okay, now if you go back to the design, we have another heading tag followed by another paragraph tag, and then we have a form. So let's quickly create this, right? So we'll create a heading 1, which says leave us your feedback, right? Okay, and then I'm going to close the h1 tag, right? I'm going to create a paragraph tag which says we would love to hear from you, right? Then I'm going to close the paragraph tag as well. And now let's just quickly scroll down to the bottom and see what we are working with, right? So if you scroll down, we have the list of dishes, right? And then we have leave us your feedback and we would love to hear from you, right? Now, if you go back here, we have a form, right? We have a form that has a button and a few text fields. So let's create this. Now, if we recall from the presentation, I told you how to create a form, right? So we create the form tag, right? So that will be the left angle bracket followed by the word form and then the right angle bracket. I go to a new line, I create an input tag to create a text field, right? So to create a text field, I would add the attribute called type is equal to text, right? So now let's just see what happens when we do this, right? And I'm going to close this and I'm going to close the form tag, right? So let's scroll down, right? Let us scroll down and we can see that, we have this box here, but then it does not tell us what to do, right? It just says, it's just a box. We won't know what to do with it. So let's add in the placeholder and see what happens now, right? Placeholder attribute is equal to name, right? Sorry, right? And we come down, we scroll down. Now we can see that we have a text field which says name. So I can type in my name, right? That's great. Now, okay, now that's great, right? Let us quickly create another input tag, right? Now I'm going to create an input with a type of email, right? Because that is what we have over here. We are showing right. So if we come back here, we have, we have the email tag. We are asking them for an email. So we're going to put an input attribute type is equal to email and placeholder is equal to email, right? And keep in mind that we are we are working with open tags over here, so we don't have a forward slash before it closes. And if we scroll down, we can see that it has created that. Now let's quickly create a text area, right? So I'm going to create a tag called text area. I'm going to create a attribute called row, right? Sorry, rows is equal to, and then I'm going to say 10 rows, right? And then I'm going to create an attribute called calls, and then I'm going to say this is 30, right? And then I'm going to close the text area tag, right? And now if you look at it, if you come back, we can now see that it has created a text area, right? But we don't know what it is. So let's add in a placeholder, right? Okay. Okay. Just give me 2 minutes, guys. Okay, yeah, there we go. So leave us your message, right? So you're going to ask them to leave us their message. And now if you look at it, if you scroll down to the bottom, right, you can see that we have name, we have email, and then we have message. Okay. Now let's create another input tag with an attribute of type. Okay, is equal to is equal to submit, right? And an attribute called value, and an attribute called value with the value as submit. Okay, and then I'm going to close that. Okay. Now, if we quickly scroll down to the bottom, right, we can see that it has created a button called submit. Okay. Great. Okay. All right. So coming back to what we've learned so far for the day, we can see that we have created. We can see that we have created a simple website which has information about a cafe that's going to open shortly in Mysuru or in the town. Right? We have a few images. We have learned how to create heading tags. We have learned how to create paragraph tags. We have learned how to create lists in HTML, and we have also created how to display images, right? And we have also learned how to create a form. Okay, great. So let me just come back quickly to this. Okay, so that's it for today, right? Tomorrow we are going to so that's it for today, right? Tomorrow we're going to be taking a look at CSS and what we can do with CSS, right? What are the different things that we can do? How can we make whatever we have written so far a lot more beautiful than this, right? So that's for today. But for now, I think we can take questions.